You learn nothing from success. Nothing. You learn everything from the failures. And this is the thing that annoys me about the state that the world is in at the moment, is no one talks about failure anymore. It's like shame. Like, failure is shame. And it's like, oh, let's just bury that and not talk about it.
We'll have more amazing clips from Ed Sheeran talking about the value of failure. We also have one from No Backup Plan's Nathaniel Drew, and another one from Taylor Swift talking about the true reality of failure in her career. We also have the Crayon Song, Arnold, Clive Barker, and we'll be reading some more pages from Alice in Wonderland. This is Night Sessions, episode 2.
How it fades when you're away, and the last thing that hurts said to you is always on replay. So I exhale a song, but breathe in a sickness as you cough out more lines, and I measure the distance back home.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well tonight. How are you doing, Amelia?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well.
Let's check out some more of those clips from Ed.
Failing time and time after again. Yeah. Like, I'm sure you'll agree with me with this. You learn nothing from success. Nothing. You learn everything from the failures. And this is the thing that annoys me about the state that the world is in at the moment, is no one talks about failure anymore. It's like shame. Like, failure is shame. And it's like, oh, let's just bury that and not talk about it. No one goes, oh, what do we learn from this? Whereas with success, everyone shouts about it. But there's nothing in success. Success happens from failing hundreds of times.
Yeah, I love that. I love how he links failure and shame. He talks about the link between those. I feel like that is so true. Society really has linked, for I don't know how long, but society has linked failure to shame.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, I think, the next level. Like, the first level is, oh, failure gets you to success. Like, that's the teacher. And I'm just always curious, how many other people understand that lesson. And I think some people really understand it, and then some people absolutely don't. And I'm curious what you think about that. When you fail at something, what is your thought with that? I know for me, we have 2 more clips from him to also. This is with Howard Stern. It's really interesting. I have 2 more clips with him. And I know for me, some things I fail, I'm like, okay, cool, I'll do it again. But some things, I don't think they're that way. I think they impact you. They actually kind of crush you a little bit.
And Ben right here is someone who does it very well and gracefully. You don't dwell on failures as a shameful personal flaw. And
some of them,
I don't know if you do. I do that. I've really internalized failures.
Yeah,
to my detriment.
You tend to view most of them as a failure of you as a person, not of you as, okay, this thing I just tried didn't work quite right. What can I do to fix that? How can I do it better the next time? And let's watch another clip here. This is Howard Stern kind of reacting to that. It's real interesting. 2 people, obviously, that have been very successful.
This is such a great message, and people don't believe it. They truly believe that if you work hard enough at something, I don't care what it is, that you can really become an expert. You can become great.
But it doesn't just happen overnight. You have to be rubbish. And you have to have people laugh at you. And you have to have people go, oh, go on, get a real job. No, this isn't really going to work. You have to. And you just have to have belief that eventually it is going to get better.
Yeah, I don't think we as a society have patience to fail that much,
Yeah, the cost can be huge, too. I mean, failure... it can be like, oh, I dropped a glass or something. Or it can be like, I just wrecked this company that I built because I made a really dumb mistake. It can run this whole range. And yeah, again, I'm just curious what failure means to each of you and how it maybe has hurt you. Because failure will hurt you at times, like really hard. And sometimes sometimes failure is just, okay, that just is terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll hear more like about this concept that I'm about to mention in a minute. We'll hear a few more clips, but just the idea that a failure is only how you, like what you see it as. I feel like that's a huge determinant of like how you do feel after a failure. I know for me, a lot of times I have been crushed by things that I failed at and not been able to move on from them. And I really think it's destroyed me in a lot of ways. And I'm curious if, people have done that or how you react.
Yeah. And then being honest again, though, too, and separating that some failure is just, if you fail and it ends up in your arm being chopped off, like, yeah, what's the lesson learned there? Like, who cares, honestly, And I'm curious, like, your two versions of failure, because most of them are like what you're talking about, where there's a lesson there if you're willing to go into it, if you're willing to not feel the shame and you're willing to be okay with failure, to just say, okay, this is part of a learning process. And then there's other ones, that are just, okay, but setting those aside, and I do think those are by far a minority. I think most failure actually is just the teacher. It is.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, I would love to know what your failures have been on both sides of those. It'd be really interesting to know.
I think these really successful people like Ed and stuff, like you have to have that in you to keep going time and time again. And I think most of society does not have that. I think that is actually one interesting thing. Like, I think as a society, we actually try to avoid having to feel that pain of failure time and time again. We put ourselves in jobs that are like, okay, we go to work day to day. We know what's happening. We don't have to keep, just standing on the street singing your song time and time again and getting rejected.
Yeah. And the lesson to all creators, whether you are, you're a YouTuber, you're a musician, you're an actor, the lesson that you're getting, I'm sure, because we get this message, is that like, you're kind of nothing. You're nothing. And it's like, oh, you look at your numbers, your metrics, and it's like, yeah, that's true, we're nothing. But then weirdly, like one moment later, after you broke through here, you had a video or song, something take off, now you're something. Like that's a messed up reality that we all live with, the people that are going into this chaotic realm of creation. And, it's an odd reality. Because we're the same people, you're the same person you were the day before. And like,
Yeah. You definitely, and maybe some of you do, but Ben definitely has an interest in, like that going from nothing to something, like, like what does it mean? It is subjective, but like the zero number, like every channel starts with zero. Mr. Beast had
Which is
zero.
hard to believe, right?
Yeah,
most people don't.
I can't believe it.
I think literally, I think people on some level don't believe.
I can't believe it.
That he was at a zero. Like Mr. Beast was at zero.
I can't believe other like artists are like did what I'm doing now, like posting these pictures, and it's like, on TikTok we're doing these pictures, and it's like you just get this minor engagement, and like you're responding to people, and like somehow, imagining that someone huge did that at one point.
That everyone huge, unless you're coming straight from Disney or something, I don't know. That's a different story.
True.
But I don't think most people come that way. I think most people are grinding and, with or without some help. Let's watch this last clip. from this interview.
Where the hell does that belief in yourself come from?
The belief comes from, and I'm sure you feel the same way as well, of like, what else are you going to do? I love playing music. I love writing songs. I love performing. And I'm like, I can't do anything else.
Yep. That's what I figured out just recently. You know, I in this battle of like, should I go one way? Should I go one way or the other? Can I just have this normal life, or do I want to do music? And the moment that it hit me was I realized it's not my choice. If I'm not doing music, I'm just going to be miserable. So I can do anything else in the world. I could be saving the planet from burning up. I could do anything that might give me insane value, but if I'm not doing music, I will be miserable. And once I realized that, I'm like, well, okay, I'm screwed. It's like that's just basically, I'm born this way. Not that I was born that way, but it's something that feels almost like I was born this way. Deal with it, you know? Like,
yeah, it's something that scares me. I get that. I have the same feeling, you know, like I really feel there's nothing else that is truly me other than doing music. And it scares me because I feel, well, you know, I'm doubtful and I'm very scared of things. And
well, there's nothing safe about it either. So
no,
isn't it by definition just kind of scary? I think it'd be interesting. I would love to know other people's stories. Like, what's your story when it comes to that moment, that decision? Is it just like, oh, this would be cool, this would be fun? Or is it like, nope, this is me. That's all I can be. It's all I want to be. I would love to know, what is your story?
Yeah, anything you've had to fight for to be, or like who you are, what you're doing, pursuing.
And there's a whole slew of these sort of, I don't want to call them careers, but directions that are not defined. There is no path for us. Like everything we figure out, and again, any musician, any sort of creator, whatever, you're going to identify with this because everything we figure out, no one else knows the answer. You can't go to a professor be like, okay, so I have this calculus problem, and so if I take, there's no authority. It's constantly evolving. It involves an insane amount of luck. Also, maybe you're not great at it, so that changes the variables.
It's
That's
also
wild.
Specific to you too, like for your genre of music or your type of, you know, what type of creator are you? You really have to find your own way to do it. Even if, despite how many tutorials you watch or, you know, YouTube, like how to become a creator and everything, you can't take that step by step. Still, you have to find your own path with it for your own unique set of skills and what you do.
Let's check out this other clip from Ed. This is pretty good.
Complete this sentence. Success requires
persistence. You don't have to have the best talent in the world. You just have to work hard and keep going for it.
Let's check out this set of videos. We have 3 from No Backup Plan's Nathaniel Drew, and his take is real interesting.
This is the idea that excites me the most, is that the paradox is that a failure is only defined as such by the actions taken after the fact. You have the opportunity to walk away from the entire experience, not even considering it a failure in the first place. So my conclusions are...
I want to just mention that first, just before we get to his 2 conclusions, the fact that it is perception. Failure and what comes after it is up to you. And this is the one I love. This is the example I absolutely love, is take a ball, take a dog, take a ball, throw it, and watch how many times that dog runs that ball down, 100 times. Is it ever going to look at one of those jumps, misses the ball goes flying, goes and grabs it, is he ever going to look and be like, oh man, I really messed that up. I really screwed that up. Guaranteed 100 out of 100 times, he's going to go get the ball and be full of joy the entire time. Yet we can't do that. For whatever reason, we can't have that response to failure. He's learning. 100 times he got to learn. But we, maybe one out of those times, 20, if you're really feeling positive.
Yeah, it's the goal of non-judgmental stance. Like that could really allow you to do everything. But yeah, let's see the rest of what he's going to say about it.
Okay,
really
here's
good.
number one, and we'll get to number two in a second.
So my conclusions are twofold. The first is that you can actually do a lot to mitigate the potential negative impact of a failure, of a mistake, of screwing up. And that you can do simply by being mindful of all of the psychological BS that you can inflict upon yourself. That's the first takeaway.
Yeah, the psychological stuff that you can inflict on yourself is huge, you know, like, oh, saying this is what I did wrong, like that.
Back to shame, right?
Oh yeah, and judgment. Like one of the things, like a strategy in DBT, which is a type of therapy, dialectical behavioral, is non-judgmental stance. And like if you can't have, you have to be able to look at the situation without judgment to make a wise mind, like informed decision on something. It's definitely the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and then here is the second part of this.
The second is that by taking the opportunity to reflect and to make changes, to correct, you can lead yourself to a long-term positive impact. And when that happens, you really can't even consider this a failure in the first place.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think one of the and I'm curious if you are this way or that way. I feel like there's two ways of doing this. Okay, I failed. What did I do? How can I fix it and do it better next time? And the other one is like, I failed. I'm a terrible human being. I'm not worth this. I'm not worthy of this. And it shrinks you. And what I'm curious is, what type of person are you? And how do you think you got there? And for me, what's interesting is what I started to understand is I got through playing sports. And I don't know that I really valued sports as much as I did after this epiphany. Like after this realization, I realized, oh, okay, there's a value to sports I never understood. And it's this, that if you go to do something, say you play baseball and a pitcher throws a ball at you and you swing and you miss, your first thought is like, what did I do wrong? Or like, what do I have to do to hit that ball? You just failed. And you're just you're going right past the failure. And you might feel bad for a second, but if you're going to excel at sports, your next move is automatic. What can I do to hit the ball now? What do I have to do? Maybe watch the ball closer, try to see what's happening, stand a different way. And once I realized that is a mindset you get through sports, I realized, that was a gift. Like that was a gift that I had to do this over and over and over. Every time I made a mistake, over and over, thousands and thousands and thousands of times, I had to sit and think, okay, how can I do that better? And I was just some dumb kid. I was like that dog running around chasing a ball, not caring. Oh, I just screwed it up, didn't catch the ball. I was just like that dog. I was just this dumb kid who was like, oh, what do I gotta do? What do I gotta do? How do I do this now? How do I do that? There wasn't that judgment. I might have been frustrated, but that made me motivating. It wasn't anything more than, what do I have to do now? Like, how do I get to, the success that I want?
Yeah, I think part of that is learning that at such a young age too, you know, just being that young and learning that lesson, I think could be really valuable. I think as you get older, you start to develop a whole relationship to yourself, shame and failure. And depending on what that is, it'll kind of dictate what you're able to do.
Yeah, that's
after
interesting.
You fail.
I've never thought of the age aspect, that if you get that young enough, it may make you feel okay about failure in a way you can't quite harness later in life. You know, because I did it with so little judgment. Like, there wasn't that self-judgment. I was just determined. I was like, fight. I'm going to figure this out. And maybe that's much harder to attain later once all this other
I think once you have
stuff.
a mindset ingrained, it is a lot more difficult. I think about that, and I wish that I was able to ingrain a different mindset. I also think it is a wider mindset of negativity that plays into it as well. If you're overwhelmingly negative, pessimistic, and negative, you're much more likely to see a failure as a failure. You know, like, I'm a failure. That's what I've experienced.
Yeah,
I'd
so
be
your
curious if
baseline,
anyone else
maybe?
has that. Yeah, if anyone else has if you have a baseline of negativity, or like you're always really pessimistic, seeing things as negative, if that influences how you felt when you fail.
Yeah.
If you see the relationship.
Yeah,
I do, but
is your baseline negative. And also, I would also like to know, if anyone else has, if you've noticed this, that you can bounce back from failures and just go, okay, get up, let's go. If you're able to do that, and am I onto something with this sports thing? You know, is there something to it that, you know, and it could be sports, it could be anything, you could play chess or whatever. I mean, anything that, you know, you have to keep bouncing back in order to learn. And I'm curious if any of you have grown up in that way. A lot of us grew up playing sports, and, you know, and I'm curious if you've noticed this, about yourself, if you feel that you have that sort of in you, or maybe you don't.
yeah. And let's hear our quote. This is a great one.
So we're going to let Robin Williams do this for us because, you know, well, it's Robin Williams.
Boys, you must strive to find your own voice, because the longer you wait to begin, the less likely you are to find it at all. Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Don't be resigned to that. Break out. Now don't just walk off the edge like lemmings. Look around you. There you go, Mr. Christie. Thank you. Yes. Dare to strike out and find new ground.
Yeah, dare to strike out and find new ground. Dare to fail, really, because you have to fail to find new ground. Yeah,
that's the dare part of it, right?
Yeah, dare, yeah.
Huh. Yeah, so the actual quote is Henry David Thoreau, and it's the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I think he kind of summed it up for us.
Yeah, me too. It's an intense quote. I mean, it's really intense if you go down the road of really, really thinking about that. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. You know, like, what are the things that you wish you had done or you still want to do, but you're like, it's too late. I can't do it. Or, you know, it's still in you, and maybe you become bitter because you didn't do it, you know, or
how many bad decisions does it take to sink someone? I think, isn't that sort of the question? Like, how many decisions do you think you could make that go against your soul before you're sort of permanently done. You know, and I think, unfortunately, I think a lot of people think, oh, I can do this. I can do law for 10 years, 20 years. And the way I feel today, I'll still feel this way after practicing law for 20 years. And then I can do the things that I love. And it's like, well, how many decisions are you going to make over the next 20 years that are going to go against your true self? And to think that you're going to come out unscathed is unfortunately a mistake. Like, you're going to be changed.
Yeah. And only some of us, I feel like, are lucky enough to get smacked in the face hard enough to realize, like, oh, wait, there's something else I can do. You know, like, I'm talking
something else
about,
you have to do.
Yeah. Like, what you said about the lawyer thing, it really made me think of Rich Roll, who, you know, he was an alcoholic and he swam a lot. You know, he's an alcoholic. He was always a great writer, just great with words. And he became an alcoholic, and he had to hit a very hard rock bottom that he talks about in his books to realize and to be able to live the life he does now, where he gets to use his words. He's an amazing, speaker, and he has an awesome podcast. He's super thoughtful. And that was only because he had the gift of failing so hard that he's smashed into the ground. And now he's living, I think, and I think most people would agree, like, close to more of his true self now.
But here's the question for you. How many people in his position make it out, come back to themselves? You know, how many people have effectively destroyed themselves, destroyed their lives, and then from those ashes can come up? You know, unfortunately, I think that number's low. I think it is low. I think there's a price for all those bad decisions. I think, unfortunately, at a certain point, you do burn up your chances. And I feel almost bad saying that, because I don't believe anyone is ever beyond hope. I just do not believe that. I absolutely believe that if you are breathing, if you're alive, that you can wake up that day and go in many, many different directions. But how I guess, being realistic, how hard is it? How much harder is it when you've made 20 years of decisions that are, you know, against you? Like, they are against what you feel and believe, and you've been cheating yourself for that long. Yeah. And I mean, again, just the vitality of being true to yourself, you know.
And I think after so many years, you know, you get to a point where you're ground down by life, you know, like if you're trying to survive, or if you get, you know, stuck in your sheep-like way of just doing what you're used to and what's comfortable for you. I think after doing that, you know, it's like they say the neural pathways get ingrained, and you're just kind of in this cycle. And after you do it for so long, I think that's why being young and like being a kid, teenager, like you don't have those ingrained neural pathways. Like, you're still forming your brain, you know. There's that. I think that's why. I love the rain. It's so nostalgic. I feel like watching the thunderstorm out the window.
Yeah, one thing I miss living in Seattle, we don't have rain like this, which immediately everyone who doesn't live in Seattle is like, what are you talking about? It's all you have. And it's not. It's weird. We don't have thunderstorms here. And sounds crazy, especially if you're from basically anywhere in the Midwest, in the South, on the East Coast. You have thunderstorms. We don't. It's just the oddest thing. And when there's a single clap of thunder, it's like cause for celebration. You're like, did you
Yeah.
hear that? Wait, did
Yeah.
you? There was thunder, and it will be one. And you're like, okay, that was it. That was
Yeah.
cool. That's our thunderstorm for the 2 months. Next 2 months. That's it.
I know, it's so weird. I don't quite understand it because in the mountains, like an hour outside of Seattle, you have thunderstorms like normal, but something about Seattle itself, you don't get the thunder.
Yeah.
It's so nice though. I don't know. I love the nostalgia of rain and like twilight, autumn. Just you should tell you people should say some of your favorite nostalgic stuff because then we can show it too. If you guys want to tell us some of your favorite nostalgic things, then we can have some good nostalgic moments.
Yeah.
And put them on here because that would be awesome.
What was the one from last episode?
The Morning Dove.
Oh yeah, the Morning Dove.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Just the call of the Morning
the
Dove.
rain. But yeah, if you have any good ones, let us know so we can let it run while we talk because it's very pleasant. It's more pleasant than just dry sound,
Apricot and
Oh yeah, this is really old, but it's pretty hilarious.
Tangerine, bear hug and electric lime, denim and dandelion, cadet blue and Caribbean green, on mellow yellow macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Really?
And red.
No way.
Yeah, it's a song about the crayon colors.
Goldenrod and shocking.
Yeah, it's
pink,
great.
Shamrock and tumbleweed. Super happy and purple pizzazz. Robin's egg blue and razzmatazz. Magic mint and mulberry. Mountain meadow and wild cherry. And orange. And red orange. Purple mountain's majesty and pink flamingo. Wild blue yonder and mango tango.
Who was that?
Okay, these guys actually are huge on YouTube now.
Wait, who is it though?
I don't know their names, but they've been around for so long. Like I don't know, and this is from like 2010 or something. Speaking of nostalgia, but yeah, they kind of look like Flight of the Conchords.
That's what I was wondering.
They're not.
It's not.
It's not.
It's
these
not.
random
I'm
YouTube
not familiar
guys.
with Flight of the Conchords.
No, yeah, they've been on YouTube for a long time, but they have like a bunch of millions in the subscribers. But I love this though. Maybe this is what helped make them. I don't know.
Wow, that's crazy.
I was one of my great passions is Goya, Spanish painter, and he used to paint sometimes 3 paintings a day. And he would paint with his fingers. He would paint with a palette knife. He would paint with brushes sometimes, but really, he kind of taught me that really whatever makes the mark is what's important. It's a very physical business. It's kind of athletic in a weird way, particularly canvases like this, canvases of this scale. Later on I'll show you some much bigger canvases. See, I don't know how close you can get on this, but I'm scratching away this red and it's just bringing through this lovely blue. Can you get that? It's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's from this dude Clive Barker, who probably people know him from Hellraiser. Like he wrote Hellraiser, I think. I don't know. I think he wrote the book Hellraiser. He's an awesome author, but these are his paintings and stuff, and I just thought that was cool. Like he's talking about, time and time again, just needing to just work away at the paintings, and some of them are kind of messed up. He's using oil for the first time, but if you read the book Abarat, it's really cool. It really affected me as a kid. Just the drawings in there are so intense, and those are what he was working on. So it's pretty, I don't know, I really like it.
They're shining a light on the choices I made that worked out, right? The ones that turned out to be good ideas, but I really, really want everyone to know, especially young people, that the hundreds or thousands of dumb ideas that I've had are what led me to my good ideas. You have to give yourself permission to fail.
I mean, yeah, if you listen to anyone, she's like the biggest thing in the world. So you can tell how good of a lesson that is, you know?
Yeah, what's weird though is I don't think anyone's going to hear this. I think people are just going to be like, oh, that's great.
I think even the news announcers who said it, they're like, listen to Taylor's message. I don't even think they are getting it either. I don't think so.
No, I think it's too weird. It's too abstract, honestly. Like, for someone who has that level of success, it almost feels like everything went right from the moment she picked up a guitar. Everything just went right. Everything was just, here you go, here's the next step. And honestly, for some people it is obviously easier for many different reasons. But man, if you could really get into what she's talking about, what are those failures? I'm curious if they do exist somewhere, if she goes into it more, because that would be interesting to find out, okay, what are these failures? Let's get into it, like what, because how old was she, like 19 when she was already massive?
Yeah, I mean, she was really young, from a very young age, like playing around in Nashville. I know her mom was really like a stage mom for sure. And like, they were really, behind her, like doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I think she made a CD at like a very young age, like teenage years.
But how many other people in that similar situation did that and nothing ever came of it? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so many, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to be inside her head during those failures. I'd love to like know what she felt,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. I think some people, okay, this was a very, very difficult path, and I think it's interesting. I think a lot in comedy, it happens where people make it, in their 30s, 40s, and you have to realize, wow, they've been going for 20 years, just club to club, almost open mic level kind of stuff. And then at age 35, 40, 45, 50, that's when they become massive. And that's a lot of time to keep going. I mean, that's a level of commitment that I don't know who has that. Very few people, honestly,
Yeah. This is the Alice in Wonderland song I'm gonna play. It's a poem at the beginning of the book, Alice in Wonderland, and I wrote a little song to it. Thus grew the tale of Wonderland, thus slowly one by one its quaint events were hammered out, and now the tale is done, and home we steer a merry crew beneath the setting sun. Alice, a childish story take, then with a gentle hand lay it where childhood dreams are twined in memory's mystic hand, like pilgrims with a wreath of flowers plucked in a far-off land. And now we're gonna read the book.
Very nice. All right, so last time Alice got bored hanging out with her sister. Let's see if I can get this right. Mm-hmm. Then she saw a rabbit and then somehow went down this hole that she could fit in.
She followed him. Yeah.
She followed the rabbit down this hole and then started falling without getting injured, just kind of floating down this. And she was witnessing things on the way down. And then at the very end of last time, she landed at the bottom. That's where we're at.
Yep. When suddenly, thump, thump, down she came upon a heap of sticks and dry leaves, and the fall was over. Alice was not a bit hurt, and she jumped up onto her feet in a moment. She looked up, but it was dark overhead. Before her was another long passage, and the white rabbit was still in sight, hurrying down it. There was not a moment to be lost. Away went Alice like the wind, and was just in time to hear it say, as it turned a corner, "Oh my, ears and whiskers, how late it's getting." She was close behind it when she turned the corner, but the rabbit was no longer to be seen. She found herself in a long, low hall, which was lit up by a row of lamps hanging from the roof. There were doors all around the hall, but they were all locked, and when Alice had been all the way down one side and up the other, trying every door, she walked sadly down the middle, wondering how she was to ever get out again. Suddenly, she came upon a little three-legged table, all made of solid glass. There was nothing on it but a tiny golden key, and Alice's first idea was that this might belong to one of the doors of the hall, but alas, either the locks were too large or the key was too small. But at any rate, it would not open any of them. However, on the second time round, she came upon a low curtain she had not noticed before, and behind it was a little door about 15 inches high. She tried the little golden key in the lock, and to her great delight, it fitted. Alice opened the door and found that it led into a small passage, not much larger than a rat hole. She knelt down and looked along the passage into the loveliest garden you ever saw. How she longed to get out of that dark hall and wander out among those beds of bright flowers and those cool fountains. But she could not even get her head through the doorway. And even if my head were to go through, thought poor Alice, it would be of very little use without my shoulders. Oh, how I wish I could shut up like a telescope. I think I could if I only knew how to begin. For you see, so many out-of-the-way things happened lately that Alice had begun to think that very few things indeed were really impossible. There seemed to be no use in waiting by the little door, so she went back to the table, half hoping she might find another key on it, or at any rate, a book of rules for shutting people up like telescopes. This time she found a little bottle on it, which certainly was not here before, said Alice, and tied round the neck of the bottle was a paper label with the words, "Drink me," beautifully printed on it in large letters. It was all very well to say, "Drink me," but the wise little Alice was not going to do that in a hurry. "No, I'll look first," she said, "and see whether it's marked poison or not." For she had to read several nice little stories about children who had got burnt and eaten up by wild beasts and other unpleasant things, all because they would not remember the simple rules their friends had taught them, such as that red-hot poker will burn you if you hold on to it too long, and that if you cut your finger very deeply with a knife, it usually bleeds. And she had never forgotten that if you drink too much from a bottle marked poison, it is almost certain to disagree with you sooner or later. However, this bottle was not marked poison, so Alice ventured to take it. And finding it very nice, it had in fact a sort of mixed flavor of cherry tart, custard, pineapple, roast turkey, toffee, and hot buttered toast. She found very soon that she finished it off. "What a curious feeling," said Alice. "I must be shutting up like a telescope." And so it was indeed. She was now only 10 inches high, and her face brightened up at the thought that she was now the right size for going through the little door in that lovely garden. First, however, she waited for a few minutes to see if she was going to shrink any further, for she felt a little nervous about this. "For might end, you know," said Alice to herself, "in my going out altogether like a candle. I wonder what I should be then." And she tried to fancy what the flame of a candle looks like after the candle is blown out, for she could not remember ever having seen such a thing. After a while, finding that nothing more happened, she decided on going into the garden at once. But alas, for poor Alice, when she got to the door, she found she had forgotten the little golden key. And when she went back to the table for it, she found she could not possibly reach it. She could see quite plainly through the glass, and she tried her best to climb up one of the legs of the table, but it was too slippery, and when she had tried herself without trying, the poor little thing sat down and cried. "Come, there's no use in crying like that," said Alice to herself rather sharply. "I advise you to leave off this minute." She generally gave herself very good advice, though she very seldom followed it. And sometimes she scolded herself so severely as to bring tears into her eyes. And once she remembered trying to box her own ears for having cheated herself in a game of croquet she were playing against herself. For this curious child was very fond of pretending to be two people. "But it's no use now," thought poor Alice, "to pretend to be two people. Why, there's hardly enough of me left to make one respectable person." Soon her eye fell on a little glass box that was lying under the table. She opened it and found in it a very small cake, on which the words "Eat me" were beautifully marked in currants. "Well, I'll eat it," said Alice, "and if it makes me grow smaller, I can creep under the door, so either way I'll get into the garden, and I don't care what happens." She ate a little bit and said anxiously to herself, which way, holding her hand on the top of her head to feel which way it was growing. And she was quite surprised to find that she remained the same size. To be sure, this is what generally happens when one eats cake, but Alice had gotten so much in the way of expecting nothing, but out of the way things to happen, that it seemed quite dull and stupid for her life to go on in the common way. So she set to work, and very soon finished off the cake. Chapter 2. Come back here next time.
So now she's small. But so she wanted to get, why did she want to get smaller?
To go into the garden.
Go into the garden. She just came from the garden.
No, I think she wants to go into the garden. She's in the same room. That's what I think.
I'm not giving more than what I have the time to give. I'm not saying more than paintings etched on pyramids, and I'm not sure where love will take us when I'm hopeless, young and used. But it's all